Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Throw Zone. I'm your host, Big Kev, and today we have an episode that I feel like a lot of people are going to be excited to see. We are here with Coach Caleb Seal, the founder of Throw Town Ramona, the greatest place on earth to throw the discus that has been proven once again as the world record was broken there multiple times just a couple days ago. So, welcome, Coach Caleb.
Yeah, how's it going, Kevin?
Well, not too bad. Thank you for coming on the podcast today. I'm really excited that you're able to make it on. I was actually able to interview Caleb for a entrepreneurship project for school last year, and I got to learn a whole lot of how he started his track club with Seal Throws Club, as well as how he got started with Throw Town Ramona. And I thought it'd be an awesome thing to share with everyone that follows the channel here. So well, let's take a quick moment to thank our sponsors. So I'd like to thank Lincoln Microphone, first of all. They provide the microphones here in Lincoln for us for our podcasts. If you're in need of any custom microphone work or microphone repair, go give them a check out online. If you use Bitcoin, you can also receive 50% off, which is pretty good deal in this economy. But we'd also like to thank Shubert Cattle and Farms LLC. If you're looking to get a good deal on half a cow or whole cow or any type of beef, just send the Throw Zone a DM and I'd be happy to get you connected with them. So now to get things started here, we'll start back for square one, and that would be, when did you first get involved in throwing?
It's back in junior high school in Childress, Texas. Childress is a small community. It's a farm and ranch community between Amarillo, Wichita Falls, Texas area, in the Panhandle. I had a really good mentor and a coach there in Childress who had a machine shop in Childress, and he put his son and daughter through college throwing the discus and shot put. Both of them were school record holders and went to state in Texas multiple times and set records everywhere. They ended up both going to Abilene Christian University. But anyways, I basically got the nerve up to knock on Mr. John Bragg's door. Anyways, and just ask him if he'd be willing to teach me how to throw the discus. And sure enough, meet me down there at the throwing circle at 5 p.m. after work every day. So I got to throw with his daughter, Deanne, and that's kind of where the learning started for me at a very young age. He was a great mentor, motivator, great teacher, still is today. I call him almost every week just to kind of give him updates on Ramona, but he's a very important figure in my life and has always been that. He took me around as a 13, 14, all through high school. Just kind of took me to big championship meets. That's kind of where I learned how to compete in the discus and shot put. In school, in high school. Obviously, Southern Methodist University had a strong throwing program, and
That's for sure.
I followed those guys really closely. And ACU, Texas Tech had some really good throwers, but all those Texas schools, they had some really good throwers to kind of follow and try to learn from. But that's kind of where I got my start.
Yeah, and so when you first started throwing, you mentioned the discus a lot, a little bit of the shot put. Did you throw any of the other events?
No, my main focus was discus. That's kind of my first love and passion. It was very easy for me. I was a kind of a long, tall, stringy, young kid. I could really whip the discus pretty well, and the way Mr. Bragg taught me how to throw the discus was kind of the German style, the non-reverse type throwing, and I really excelled with that technique. But anyways, it's the foundation that he really ingrained within me, and the choice of words he used to really teach me how to throw, I still use today.
Well, that's awesome.
I spent some time in different camps. I flew out to UCLA back in the 90s, late 90s, worked with Art Venegas. It wasn't just Art there at the UCLA camp. It was all the All-Americans that he had at the college level. John Godina was there in his prime. He was right off the 96 Olympic Games. He was there. It was just those summer times were just really motivating and gave me an opportunity to work with other coaches and athletes too. And it kind of opened my eyes. And, that's kind of where I got my foundation between Mr. Bragg, Art Venegas, and following the SMU guys with Dave Woolman and just self-research at home. Gosh, I have VHS tapes of Mac Wilkins and John Powell and those guys.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it was just on and on and on, just learning and picking every resource I can find to use. You know, if it wasn't a VHS tape, it was actually in person training with some of the best in the world. And, you know, I did my own self research on certain individuals and film study, even at a young age in high school. So, you
That's a
know,
lot of commitment for high school.
yeah, it is. But, you know, I grew up on a farm and ranch, and entertainment was actually throwing a discus or shooting the basketball or throwing the football in the front yard. So it was one of the three for me. I stayed busy in sports my whole entire youth, my youth ages. So, you know, like I said, if it wasn't a ball sport, I'm throwing the discus out in the middle of the cow pasture. You know,
Yeah.
but you know, and that's kind of how I learned how the wind affected the discus in a positive way. I used it the best of my ability. I was a little more smaller athlete than your regular big strong discus and shot putter type, so I had to use whatever I could use to compete. But anyways, yeah, that's a little bit about my early years. Um,
And
I
then you went to Sam Houston for college to throw.
Yeah, I did. I chose the track and field route over the football route. You know, I was all state in high school in both sports, football and track, and I just chose the track route. I thought it was. I just couldn't go up against a 6'5", 300-pound lineman every single day pounding on me. So I chose the track and field route and chose Sam Houston State University as my school. Spent 4 years there, learned from several different coaches that were positive influences in my life and my journey with the shot and discus, and I actually hammer as well. Anyways, yeah, Sam Houston State was a good stepping stone leading up into the coaching world. But yeah, that's kind of how I got started there.
Yeah, and so once you finished your time at Sam Houston, did you know right away that you wanted to get into coaching?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've had so much knowledge, just kind of like packed. I not only use the knowledge for myself, I'd always help somebody that's needing help in high school and college too. But in my mind, I knew I had enough knowledge to really use at a high level and make an impact. Not only high school kids, but pretty much even these professionals that I'm around. The pros that hang around at Throw Town Ramona, they end up learning a little bit something, to take away just being around me. I'm a resource for everybody here in Oklahoma. I've always tried to make myself a resource for not only athletes and coaches, but the athlete parent duo. As far as the young kids wanting to learn, I enjoy working with the parents too. I try to keep them up to speed on what to look for when they're trying to work with the kids. But it's just knowledge transfer, and that's what I'm really have been good at for the last 20 years on the coaching side of it.
Yeah, and so I guess kind of jumping into our next little piece here. As you said a second ago, like Throw Town Ramona was started in 2005. It's about 20 years ago. So what was step one for you starting your club? What inspires you to create your own club and not just help out a couple people and call it a day?
Okay. Well, yeah, I started my throwing club, the SEAL Throwing Club, back in 2005. I ended up, the very first athlete I really got to work with was a young lady, Kylie Spurgeon, here in Oklahoma. She was in her junior year here in the hometown, Owasso. That's kind of where I live too. And she was a junior. She was throwing about 108 feet or so in March. And we started in March, the first week in March, her junior year. And by May, she basically broke the state record here in Oklahoma with about 2.5 months of work.
Wow,
It
that's a
was,
quick turnaround.
it is, but again, that was an indicator that I've got the knowledge to help kids, as a resource. She ended up 173 feet and still holds the overall state record here in Oklahoma. She still holds. It was almost 20 years ago. So she ended up two-time All-American, and then from then on, my phone rang off the hook pretty consistent every single year. My goal was to basically, have 5 to 8 kids and have a core group that I really focused on trying to get to the next level. If we can just take a kid from 100 feet and just try to progress them and help develop them and try to get school paid for their college. And that was my goal. If I could just have one
Yeah,
athlete here, but we had like 6 girls sometimes, and 4 or 5 of those girls would be state champions in their classes. So, and that happened almost every year here in Oklahoma. So,
Yeah, and so were you able to work with them like a couple times a week, or just once a week, or how frequently were you able to coach them?
it was pretty much daily. It's almost like 6 days a week.
Wow.
After work, 5 p.m. to dark, and then we'd take off on Fridays, of course, and then Saturday would be the track meet. But Sunday is kind of when all the work starts. Sunday through, I'd say probably Thursday. Sunday through Thursdays when the work's done, and then we just pack up and go compete somewhere. And if it wasn't one athlete that I was helping, it was probably 5 kids that we kind of took around and went from meet to meet, and then we went to the Great Southwest meet, and then we'd go to the Nike Outdoor National Championships, and then some. I guess back in 15 years ago, it was called the Junior National Championships as well. So we try to get them qualified for those national meets and try to perform really well in them and try to get them seen by some of the schools across the country. And they'd get picked up and signed with schools pretty much all over the country. So it's rewarding. I mean, for me, it was rewarding to see them go from nothing to something and set records and do really well and end up getting their college paid for. And it was rewarding to me to see that. So here we are today.
Exactly.
Still doing it.
Yeah. So you had to spend a lot of your own time and effort on these kids. Were you able to become a full-time coach, or were you have a job in addition to that?
Yeah, I usually worked. What brought me to Tulsa was the oil and gas companies here in Tulsa, and so I would work during the daytime, and then 5 o'clock would roll around. I'd go to the discus range, start working with athletes, and that was my normal routine for almost pretty much 15 years here in Oklahoma. The oil and gas industry kind of took a dip, and I no longer worked for oil and gas companies, and all I had was, practice during the day. That's kind of what basically the only thing that I had to fall back on.
That sounds like that's what the dream was, though.
Yeah, it's been my passion since day one. So the shot and discus at the high school level kind of got boring to me, and I wanted another challenge, so I picked up the hammer and started teaching the kids hammer throw. If the kids could just learn how to turn and learn how to just throw the hammer and compete with it just a little bit, it's kind of a feather in their hat to get recognized at the college level. So
yeah,
kind of the way for them to compete. And so I created the Oklahoma Throw series and created competitions pretty much every weekend, not every weekend, but throughout the month. But the Oklahoma Throw series, that's kind of when it started back in 2015. And it allowed me to develop high school kids throwing the hammer and then also get the marks on paper. And so that's a way that they can compete against each other here in Oklahoma. We don't have hammer throwing sanctioned for their high school event, but at the club level, they can compete in the hammer. So that's what we did. We sanctioned it through USATF, and we throw the hammer every single day. Sunday through Thursday, we're throwing the hammer, and then we're picking up the discus or shot put throughout the week, and then we're competing on the weekends. So
wow.
We've already sent kids to basically the SEC throwing the hammer, and not only SEC, a lot of other conferences, Conference USA and the American Conference. So the kids are going places and throwing the hammer, shot and discus. So that's kind of the format.
Yeah, and so with the club started, I think a lot of people would really like to hear the birth of Throw Town Ramona, of what day one was of this vision to create this facility that you have now.
Well, I would host competitions at local high schools normally for our Oklahoma Throw Series competitions, and it started attracting some of the post collegiates and some of the better throwers in the United States. They would hear I'm having a competition on the weekend, and they would jump in the car, and 9 hours later they're in Tulsa, and I'm like, wow, I'm hosting a competition, and we have Olympians starting to show up throwing the hammer or discus and shot. And it was kind of a challenge to keep hosting competitions at high schools because their field was not surveyed and it's never level. And then number two, the schools didn't want clubs there to begin with utilizing the facilities. So, I had my battles and challenges to keep doing that at high schools, and it just wasn't going to happen. It wasn't going to continue. It was just too frustrating. At one of the competitions, there was an older gentleman. His name's Don Milliken, who still he was a competitor in the masters age group, and he could kind of see the frustrations of hosting it at high schools and the type of athletes that were showing up. Kind of blew his mind. So he basically gave me the green light to go out and find my own place to build that would suffice of hosting our competitions. And he just kept prodding me to go do it. And so I went out and just started looking everywhere. I wanted outside of Tulsa. I didn't want in city limits. Number one, the land costs were too high, and then the wind doesn't really blow when you got buildings and trees everywhere.
Yeah.
But I wanted a discus facility. I wanted a place that we can continue to develop our high school kids throwing the hammer and competing in the hammer. But I was back home in Childress, Texas over the summer, and I kind of got a ping on my phone, and it was the property at Ramona, and it was everything that I was looking for. It even had buildings on it, existing sheds, basically. That's what they were. So that Monday, I got back into Tulsa, and I went straight to the property and looked at it. And that day in the summer, I mean, the wind was blowing out of the south so strong and consistent. I immediately got on the phone with Don, and I was like, "This is the place that we need to pursue on purchasing." And so we came out and looked at it, and he agreed. We saw some challenges with it because it had a huge hill in the middle of the property that needed to be either cut back or completely leveled. In my mind, that was already going through my mind. We're gonna have to level that hill to give us some room
Yeah.
to compete. So we ended up closing on it and purchasing the place, and we started having practice there immediately, just off of regular 4x8 sheets of boards, and we had kind of a makeshift weight room. I turned one of the buildings already into a weight room. Bought most of all my stuff used, of course, and then just started kept working the kids, and probably since we had Ramona, I mean, we put 3 kids right away to Division I schools.
Yeah, that's a quick turnaround.
Just using the weight room, just having a weight room to use. I've never had that.
Yeah, so before you had that weight room, where were your kids lifting?
They weren't. We basically relied on their school program to do the lifting for them, and sometimes that's good, sometimes it's not good. But I'm the type of guy that really wants to be in charge of the weight room as well as the throwing side of it, technically, or it just doesn't work. And I've learned that in the last 5 years. But the weight room was a huge asset. That's the first thing that we got established at Ramona was a weight room. Whether we had floor mats down or not, it doesn't matter. We had a squat rack and a bench, a bench press station, the Olympic lifts. We got everything that we needed for the essentials for training, and we got it going right away. So that was a way that we could really jumpstart on developing the kids that I had those years. And the weight room was a huge catalyst to their progression, and they ended up going Division I, all 3 of them. So then we started the dirt work. So I had to hire an engineer and a guy that can move some dirt. So I hired a dirt guy and engineer. We just went to work in 2022. Every day I was out there constantly just working with those with the people that I hired to get the field correct. So we cut down the hill, used the existing dirt that we had to build the throwing field that we have now. And I think probably in the summertime we had the field completed. The dirt work was done, and we started pouring concrete in the summertime. It was 107 degrees, and
Wow.
pouring concrete where our large hammer cage is. We started with that pad first and the drill pad, and then we just kind of started working on some of our selective discus rings in the corner, the northwest corner, which is now the world record ring. So I'd have my compass every day, making sure that those forms and platforms are perfect. Like, this is going into a certain degree that I want in order to get some production off of it. So we just worked on one ring at a time, and the world record ring was the first ring that we poured, and then we moved to the other corner, southwest corner, and got that one poured. And those are hot, long days of working. But I had a really good crew, that's knowledgeable with concrete, and they knew how to work. So things got done fairly quickly.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
Yeah, and so then just getting grass out there, we ended up sodding the field. I think it took like 5 semi truck loads of sod, and we probably had 19 guys out there at one time all day just laying sod. But when we got the sod laid, we were almost there. We had to get a surveyor to make sure the field was level to the rings, and there was a lot to it. But
And then to get all the different certifications from World Athletics and all those other places, was it a pretty straightforward process, or did you have to jump through a lot of hoops for that?
it was jumping through hoops. There was a lot of them. I didn't know if it was even possible to get it done, but it was a lot of forms to fill out and a lot of work on our surveyors and dirt guy. If it wasn't right, we had to go back and redo it. It has to be it had to be perfect. It can't be. It's got to be flatter than a parking lot, and that was mind blowing. I can't believe we actually did it, but it was that was a big challenge.
And hopefully that was before you put the sod down, right?
Oh yeah, exactly. It was. We got the dirt. We got everything level, and yeah, we surveyed everything before and after actually. So it was constant work until we got it right.
Yeah, and then I guess you got the sod, you got the rings poured.
Yeah, and then
How soon do you have your first competition there?
well, we ended up adding a javelin runway, and my engineer was Amy Bakel, and she was a collegiate All-American throwing the javelin, and so glad I had her knowledge, and I was at ease because she had the track knowledge and she understood what I was trying to do. But we got a javelin runway poured and got the top on, and it looks awesome. So I think we had like just kind of a preliminary type competition there late 2022 just to try it out, and it went well. But 2023 was really our first competition season. We had some guys that were 60 to 62 meter guys, and I needed those guys to come and try it out. We had spent a lot of money and time building it, and I just needed somebody to actually some really good athletes to come and try it out. And so I had a handful of guys, and I think Joe Brown was one of them from day one. Josh Sarachin and Darian Brown, maybe a few others, but they left with kind of mind blown. They ended up throwing a 4 meter PR, 2 to 4 meter PR every one of them, and their mind was kind of blown. They ended up calling Alex Rose, talking him into coming down and trying it out. And so April 15th, 2023, Alex came, and not only Alex, it was we had a handful of athletes that came that weekend. Julia Tonks, Jason brought the girls down from Canada. Julia was one of them. We had Alex Rose. We had Cece from she competed for Nigeria. There's a few others. Those were the top athletes that set some pretty big records that weekend. Alex Rose set the Oceania record. I swear he probably threw a 5 meter PR on a cold day.
Wow.
But we had a strong win, but CC ended up setting the African area record. So there's 2 area records set on the same day. Area records are extremely hard to break. They've been around for a long time, and they encompass a large area, of course. And then Julia Tonks, she ended up setting the under 18 and eventually the under 20, U20 and U18 Canadian records that same weekend. So we're talking about like a high school girl throwing 198 feet, almost 200 feet, basically.
Yeah, that would get a lot of people's attention.
Yeah. So that pretty much, when you throw area records and you throw 5 meters farther or 4 meters farther than you've ever thrown in your life, that pretty much gets the attention of the rest of the Olympic field. Like, where did Alex throw that at? That's the first question people ask is where was it?
Yeah, no, I remember being in the same boat. I saw something on like Garage Strength or one of their profiles of Alex Rose had a 5 meter PR, and that's when I first heard about Ramona, and I was just kind of shocked of that's a huge jump. And then just thinking about the idea of having a facility designed and built for the discus, I thought that was just the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, we positioned the rings where we could either have a north wind or a south wind, and obviously the wind blows in Oklahoma, as they say, the wind comes sweeping down the plains. So Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, the wind really blows strong.
Yeah, we have a place like I grew up in Omaha, and there's a little smaller, not quite town outside west of Omaha called Fremont, and our high school record was broken there the last like 3 or 4 times that the record was broken was at that high school meet, and they had a huge field, and they had a discus ring on each of the corners of this big rectangle as well as the sides. And so no matter where the wind was blowing, you're able to get a good ring. And for a high school meet, if you don't have a tailwind, that's like a huge deal.
Well, see, there's other good places other than Ramona. I know where they exist, but yeah, that was kind of the start of it all in 2023. It set the next year up for some of the other big names to come in. So I set basically the first World Invitational was right there mid-April, trying to mimic exactly what we did with Alex, and that kind of attracted some of the bigger names. And eventually, Mykolas Alekna came, and thank goodness he did. He ended up breaking the world record for the first time in like I don't know 38 years. So that was
Because that was the most difficult record to break for all of track and field, to my understanding.
yeah one of
And
the
every report I ever read when I was first getting into it was always the men's discus record is untouchable.
oh yeah in my mind it was one of the most iconic records in track and field, and to
Yeah.
dream about getting close to that is mind blowing. But if I could just, I knew if I could get a 70-meter guy that could throw it in stadium to Ramona, they would have a legit chance of breaking the world record. Because
Yeah.
that place, I've seen on average, it improves, a throw 4 to 5 meters.
Yeah. So I guess kind of taking a step back here, were you ever worried that this idea was not going to work for the wind? Like you're going to finish building it and something to do with the wind's wasn't going to blow as hard as you thought it would, or just the direction was just like the rings were slightly off? Did you ever have any worries like that?
No, never. And you know why? I did all of my research over the last 20 years. And even as a thrower, going back to my teenage years, 13, 14, the wind has always blown. Anywhere in Texas, in Oklahoma, it doesn't matter. The wind blows in this area in the United States. The wind is going to
Yep.
be, and the weather's going to be there. So I was very confident. And with Kylie, we when I was coaching her 20 years ago, I basically used the same footprint with her to set the state record here in Oklahoma. Selecting the right place to throw it at the right time. It's kind of like stacking the dominoes and then letting them fall. We
No, that makes sense.
prepare through the week and then get ready for the competition on the weekend. So it started 20 years ago, 30 years ago for me as an athlete. And then as a coach with Kylie, not only with her, but some of the other generations that I've coached, probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 other generations. We've always followed the same format, and we've always had huge marks, every single year. We've always, broke class records or set state records in the discus. And it's just utilizing the knowledge that I've had my whole entire career as athlete and coach.
Yeah, that it wasn't an overnight success. As they say, every overnight success started with a whole bunch of work right beforehand that no one else saw.
I've been doing this my whole life, and it's nothing when these professionals come in, the Olympians come in. I'm basically doing the same thing with them as I done with my high school throwers. It's and they're getting the same results I've always got. So their mind is blown, and records are falling.
Yeah. And so I guess now just coming off a weekend where you've had back to back world records in the same meet, plus, Denny's throw that would have broken the previous record as well. What more could you possibly ask for your facility just in terms of like that's just amazing that
It's mind blowing. But I thought I would get there in 10 years. We got here in 3 years. It's just word of mouth and people recognizing high performances. And the first question is, where did they do that at? Where did they throw that record at? And it's always been Ramona. And so I've been talking to Matt Denny for, ongoing probably the last 10 months, probably before the Olympics. And, he's real charismatic. He has a great personality. And, he said he's coming, mate. So he was right. He showed up, and it was really fun to watch him practice every day. Just a training session, short training session, if that. He's always upbeat, always has a smile on his face, always cracking jokes and throwing bombs.
exactly.
That was so fascinating to see the last 2 weeks, but it's setting these guys up to have success, and that's what I try to do every single day. That's my job here at Ramona is, and these guys trust me. If I need to make a change to a different ring, and we've done that. The women have competed, and I've completely changed the entire throwing sector, throwing ring that we're competing out of, right on the fly, and it they trust me. They don't lose their mind. They stay well, if I make a change, they trust my decision and my local knowledge here. I know what makes the discus fly far, and they trust me. And I'm just trying to stay ahead of the professionals and trying to set them up for good performances here at Ramona.
Exactly, where you get to make sure that you're putting them in a situation for success, and all they have to do is worry about what they're doing.
Just about what you're doing, and I'll take care of the rest. But the records on the wall are a testament of the resources that we have here naturally, planning ahead, setting these guys up for success, and the records fall one by one. Country records, world leading marks, area records, and now we have world records. The world record's been broken 3 times in in a year, basically. The world record didn't even last a year. Mykolas broke his own record, and then Denny also threw a distance far enough to break the last year's mark as well. But yeah, it's been kind of mind blowing. But we ended up this past week having 4 competitions for the men: the D section,
Wow,
the C, B, and the A section. It didn't matter which competition you were in. You were going to have to throw 230 feet to win the competition.
that's ridiculous.
Yeah, Robbie Atal, he ended up winning the D section with a 68-meter throw, 68.41, and that's a 4-meter PR from last year.
Wow.
And so I knew the C and the B and the A, it's looking pretty good for them. So there's lots of country records. I haven't even had time to sit down and tally up the country records that were broken. Well, we've had 2 area records right off the bat. Was the Oceana record that Matt Denny broke, and then our NACAC record that Valarie Allman broke. And we
Yeah,
talk about the guys, but the women went off too.
they did.
Jaden Ulrich had a 69-meter throw in the B flight, which was the second farthest throw in NCAA history. And then Valerie's flight came up, and then Lagi Tasaga opened with a 70-meter throw, first time she's ever been over 70 meters. And then Valarie followed with the 73.52, which is now the new American record and new area NACAC record. And I think there's so much more in the tank for both of those women, Lagi and Valarie, and Yame as well. There's so much more that they can. There's still more left in the tank.
Yeah. Then what? Do you have any future plans for Ramona? For anything to add or things that you like to share with like long term vision for any changes or add ons?
No, we're done building it. No more rings, thank goodness. No more pouring concrete, I don't think. We may, I don't know. I'm thinking about adding lights. I mean, we were throwing the women competition like pretty much in the dark. It was a long day on last Thursday, but we may make a change with some lighting additions. But other than that, not no further changes coming forward. But we do have host a few left-handed competitions for the left-handed discus throwers. It's only fair that we give them the fair shot, just like our right-handed throwers.
Yeah, I thought that was really neat because a lot of times there's so many right-handed throwers that the rings are almost always going to be kind of more favored for that right-handed throw. And you hear stories about people throwing discus left-handed that just get fed up and switch to the hammer since the hammer is not really influenced by the wind as much.
People just don't care. I mean, all across the world, they don't care if you're left-handed. Just you're just stuck left-handed in right-handed conditions.
Yeah,
It's an opportunity to kind of see what a left-handed thrower could do with the same opportunity as the right-handed throwers. And a lot of this stuff is just research too. It's data and research, and we have a great team led by Christoph Kip from Marquette University, who does all the biomechanical research, collecting data and presents all the analysis that he performs. So all of the data last year was presented throughout this year at various locations, and then this next year will there's so much data that Christoph and his team's got to go through from the past weekend.
well, I bet.
But it's going to be fun to look at it. It's going to be fun to see what kind of impact the wind does have on some of the throws on average. And just the data and analysis part of it is very interesting. You come away with the learning from Ramona. We don't just come out here and throw, we're collecting data and doing research analysis that can be used in the future. I think we're definitely benefiting and growing the sport. We're taking it a step forward with the throwing community. So there's a lot that comes out of Ramona other than just distances. It's data collection and analysis and biomechanical research. And Christoph and his team does a really good job of all of that. He's going to be presenting probably this next year, various locations.
Wow.
With the data that's collected the last 2 weeks. So we're really excited for that.
No, that is really exciting. Like you said, like there's been the culture of throws community too has been very involved with all the results coming out.
Sure.
All the major throwing accounts are always sharing what's going on, and it's really cool because we're in a part of track and field that some of these major championships, are throwing away all these events, and we're having a place that, like, hey, this was built for the throwers, which throwers at any level I think could be excited for anything that was made for them, since we're kind of the outcasts from the rest of the track, where our rings for every high school meet ever are a 2-mile walk uphill in the snow, both ways, and takes forever to get to. And we just now it's for us, it's just awesome. And I can't see why anyone would be excited to have something like that lead the way for future innovations.
I can tell you, Ramona is a place that you can throw 75 meters. You can throw 250 feet with a discus, and collecting data and doing the research behind it is critical. It's half research center at Ramona, but we want to be able to do that. We want to be able to collect the data behind these monster throws, and it's not just due to the winds. I mean, we have wind here from 2 to 8 meters per second, sometimes 9, but that's well within the same range as the last 16 world records on file.
Yeah,
basically, nothing's different, but it's the athletes that are throwing them. Mykolas threw 247 feet. It's almost to 250 feet with a discus. Valarie, I swear she's got the capabilities of breaking the women's world record. She has it in her. I know it. It's just a matter of time where she's comfortable enough and confident enough to come here and do it, and it's coming really soon.
I believe it.
Valarie's going to be back. She's not near done yet. So you're going to see 250-foot discus throws at Ramona.
Yeah. And with all the support of all the different, online presence in the throws community, it's cool that we had Throwers University with the live stream, and not once did the live stream stop for the Burger King Whopper commercial like every other big competition has been on Peacock or the other streaming services.
Yeah, I'm so thankful for Throws University. Partnering with Throws University, provided the whole world to see what's taking place at Ramona. It's a special, like the D flight. It's special just to watch the fourth competition of the day. Big things are happening. But not only them, I'm thankful for our sponsors this year: Scott Capos and Joe Frontier with Thrower X, and Bruce Caldwell with Fiber Sport Discus. Those guys and Rody Sport. We're trying to get the ball rolling with sponsorships, and that's what's needed going forward to keep Ramona going and to have these kind of events, because it takes a lot to put this on. Don Milliken has been generous enough to help fund a lot of it and the prize money behind some of the competitions, and so grateful for him and his family. And I'm thankful for our sponsors this year. It's going a long ways, and it's a stepping stone in the right direction. And Dan McQuaid and Joe, they did a great job with the commentary on the live stream with some of the throwers, the actual throwers that joined in as guests. That was fun to see. Christoph Kipp and his team collecting the data, and Kara Winger has been our field event coordinator, our flight coordinator. So
that's awesome.
Not only the athletes are enjoying Kara's commentary and direction, our live audience and video audience it's definitely appreciate Kara's knowledge of the event and the throwers that are in the competitions. She's really up to speed on who's who and what records are at jeopardy, and she does a lot of research on her own, and it goes a long ways. The whole team was amazing this week. We went through some adversity at first with power outages, but we managed to stay calm and focused. And in my mind, I just had to focus on the athletes. I couldn't worry about electricity and live feeds and anything else. My mind was on the athletes and staying in front of those guys, making sure that they have an opportunity to do something big.
100%.
Whether it's switching rings or sectors or putting them in a prime time win condition so that we can put on a show.
Yeah. Yeah, but it looks like we're starting to get to the end of this episode. Do
Yeah.
you have any last tidbits of advice for anyone who's an aspiring thrower, just getting started, or just overall a fan of the throws?
You can't do enough self-research. Pay attention to our current athletes and the athletes that came before us, and look at the learning curves that they went through. It will tell you it'll get you further down the road than anything. We had Mac Wilkins here at Throw Town Ramona this past weekend, and he's a walking encyclopedia. And he could tell you stories from the 1988 Big Mountain Games that he put on, or his time or experience in the Olympic Games in 1976 when he won the Olympic gold medal, or breaking the world record multiple times. Those people are who our young throwers need to know who they are and how did they progress to who they ended up being. That's my advice to the young throwers out there.
Yeah,
You can't do enough self-research.
that's very true.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, there's so many people to thank for the last 2 weeks here at Ramona. I'm excited. Things are coming to an end, but today, we had a huge day. The Dutch record was broken today, and also the New Zealand record was also broken again today by Connor Bell. There's going to be meets going forward at Ramona. You just can't pass them up. If you pass them up,
Exactly.
they get left behind. Okay, we're evolving the event and the sport, and we're putting the spotlight on our throwing events, not just discus throwing, but hammer throwing is just as important to me as discus throwing. Shot putters and javelin throwers, same. I can say the same.
Yeah, especially like you had Rachel drop an absolute bomb. She was on our podcast a couple of episodes ago. It was awesome to see her have I think it was a 4-meter PR or something like that.
She's amazing. She's an amazing athlete. Yeah, I can't even describe it to you, but these athletes are amazing. This is a place where you could bring your 14-year-old son or daughter, and they could be in the same competition as some of the Olympians. Like, where can you do that anywhere in the world?
Exactly. Like you go to like a big meet and you're not going to really see anyone that you could look up to. Where like all these other sports, if you want to find a bunch of people that like if you're like a basketball player, you go to like an NBA game, you can see people. But track's kind of weird because you might only have one of those people you look at the competition at a time. Not even just in one event. Like, you might just have, like, if Peyton's throwing at a meet in Lincoln, for example, you have him, but then there wouldn't be any other people that they look up to.
Yeah.
And then now it's just huge. Like, you get a thrower they throw, you get to see, like, pretty much like a whole huge, like, all-star cast of people all in one place.
It's just a motivating opportunity for a young thrower that wants to be good, and it's an opportunity from some of the best in the world. What else can I say? I mean, we created a great thing here at Ramona. You might read some negativity online about this and that, but you know what? We're trying to take a step forward and for all the throwing events at Ramona, and that's my livelihood and that's my passion. And I'm here for the throwing community across the world. And I've made so many friends. They're just like family to me. The Europe, the country, the athletes come to Ramona. They're just like family to me. They've been here so many times now, but I'm here to help all the athletes that perform here at Ramona.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Thank you, Coach Seal, for coming on here. I just want to give you an extra shout out. Make sure that everyone's following along with Throw Town Ramona on social media, as well as Seal Throwing Club for all the updates of what you've been doing. And I also just wanted to say thank you from the throws community as a whole for all your hard work you've done. Everyone I've talked to and seen is super enthusiastic for the direction of what you've done and where the sport is going from that aspect. So I just want to thank you for that as well.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's exciting times in the throwing world.
It is. And now we're able to have competitions like that. You're able to find all these results from your phone, see the live streams from your phone, videos, all that stuff. It's best time to be a fan of the throws is right now.
Absolutely.
In that case, that is all for this week's episode. We'll see you on the next one.